Hey guys, how you doing? Good to see you. I'm going to do a demo today for form and light logic. So just please watch this, and what I want you to do on the assignment is to create basically what you see right here, but I want you to do it in charcoal. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to start that demonstration right here. So here we go. Transition this over so you can see this a little better. Okay, so with form and light logic, you got to think about your light source. Okay, what kind of light source do you have, and what kind of shadow is it casting, and so forth. All right, so let's start here, and we're going to assume there's a light source about like that, a little bit from the front and from the upper left. Okay, maybe be a little more sideways. You could do it with the charcoal itself, that's fine, but I'm going to do it with paper towel just so I can erase things a little easier. Okay, first I just kind of want to get things set up as to where I want my object, and make sure we have room for everything. Okay, so first I want to do a sphere, a ball, right, over here. Okay, and I think we've talked about, don't draw a line around the whole thing, right? Just tap it in, get your parameters, and know where you're going to put it, and then we can work it from there. Okay, so if the light source is coming from the upper left, a little bit from the front, maybe hitting, about right here, focus-wise, and then down. So just picture the world, but picture the sun shining on the North Pole, okay? And what I'm getting at is, if the sun's shining on the North Pole, then at the equator, we're going to have a division of light and dark, right? And it's going to be a little bit curvy because we got the sun the light kind of from the front here. And so first thing you want to do is establish your shadow side. Okay, on this round object, we want it to be half. We don't want it to be more than half, so be careful not to creep the shadow up around into the light side too much. Okay, so first thing to do is establish what's called the shadow body. Okay, this will be your basic dark color or dark tone for the shadow side. Then we're going to do some things in here to play with it. Now, you can see on this little chart down here, you got a shadow body. We're going to add a couple other things to it, and then you have a cast shadow. Well, let's go ahead and do the cast shadow as we go here. And so, yeah, we'll go from there. So we got the light side, the shadow side. That's the first thing to establish. Then we want to come up and establish the kind of the last thing, which will help us with the others, and that's the cast shadow. Now, with the cast shadow, just for the sake of scheming this out and having a formula, we'll go ahead and do it with the charcoal on paper. And what that'll do is just get us a nice dark shadow to work with. Okay, I don't want to do that with the paper towel. Just want to get this nice dark shadow going. This will help us. Now remember, as you do any element of a drawing, use that chance anytime you add something or improve an area to make it more accurate. So I'm starting to think about the curvature of the ball here and how that's going to turn out. So as I do things around it, I'll be aware of that. Okay, so we have a cast shadow there. So that gives us a little basis for, where the ground is under this object. Okay, now there's a couple of things we want to do with this sphere, with this ball. And the first is we want to add something that's kind of the magic to making it curve in space. Let me just clean this up for a second. Just the light part. Now, before we add that magical element, let's go ahead up here and just ease our transition between the light and dark, right? That's not going to be a harsh transition because it's a slow curve on a ball, right? So we're going to ease that up a little bit. So I'm picking up a little bit of material, and the light won't be as intense down around here as it will be up there. So I'm just adding a little material. Hopefully you can see that there. But I still want to know where my shadow edge is, okay? Now, what'll help is when we add this next element. The next element is what we call the core shadow, okay? It's right here, core shadow. What that does, think in terms of if you're looking outside a window and it's a bright day out there and your eyes are adjusted to the light, as you bring your eyes inside, you notice how it goes dark, really dark for a second until your eyes adjust to what's in the shadows, right, or in the dark. So think of that kind of linear move from light into dark and the light into shadow. And the darkest point there is as you come into it. Okay, so we're going to add a little bit of tone, what would be just inside the shadow edge of our shadow. Okay, that creates that magical flow around a curve. Okay, or from light to dark, and you'll see how it works on a not curve too. Okay, so I'm just averaging out. Now what you don't want to do is lose your shadow body. Make sure you're maintaining your whole shadow body. You don't want to lose that tone. You don't want the core shadow to overtake it. You want to make sure you still have some shadow body in there. But you do want to have this core shadow. Can you see that? I could push it really hard. Sometimes those core shadows are really distinct, and sometimes they're hard to see. Okay, so let's make it so you can see it there. That's a core shadow. Now, so we have our shadow body, which is the main color. We threw our cast shadow in there. We have the core shadow. Now there's one more thing. You might be able to see it there. And that's reflected light. Now you'll notice everything's kind of on a symmetrical flow from the light source. Everything's kind of half and half. But the reflected light is not right here. It's not on the polar opposite of the light. It's off the table. Okay, it's off your surface. So it's basically on the bottom. Now, you could get reflected light from a lot of places in reality. Okay, but it's basically up from the table. Okay, straight up, not this way. Now, on a reflected light, don't go too light. It cannot be lighter than the darkest thing you have on the light side. That makes sense? Think about that for a second. Say this is our darkest area on the light side here. That reflected light needs to be no lighter than that. So just make sure that doesn't get away from you. Only Disney can get away with that, right? And animators and stuff like that. That incredible fakey reflected light that they can really pop on animation. Okay, but in reality, we don't have that so heavily. Okay, so guys, this is it basically. You got your shadow body, you got your core shadow, got some reflected light, and a cast shadow. Like I say, I like to get this cast shadow in place just so I can see what's going on with the rest of that there. Okay, now, I'm actually trying to keep this pretty quick, but I want to instruct this well. Now we're going to do a cube over here. You see the cube on our demo, or on our reference. Okay, I'm going to do a cube over here and show you how all those things fall into place similarly. Okay, hopefully you remember from perspective and just drawing how to build a cube. Okay, front edge corner, right? Where do I want to put it? Front edge corner. And I'm going to have these going back in space. And remember your parallels, right? In perspective. Remember that these two guys, this one and this one, need to be diminishing together as they go away from you, right? And that one and this one need to be diminishing. If they're flaring, you know they're going the wrong way, okay? Or this one and this one also. These three will be going back in space together, and these three will be going back in space together to a vanishing point. Okay, so that should sound familiar. Okay, so, just be aware of that. Just as long as they're parallel or coming together. Don't do quite parallel, do it so they're coming together, but just make sure they're not flaring. Then you know it's wrong for sure. Flaring away from you, that'd be wrong. Okay, just tidying this up a little bit. We have light on top. Now, I don't want to depend on these lines, right? I want all my lines to disappear. Okay, so let's go in and claim our shadow side of the cube. And all I'm doing is just picking a tone, a color, right? And doing an entire what? Shadow body. Okay, that's my whole shadow body. Now, the light is hitting, let me just see this like this. The light is hitting the top, and that's pretty bright. It's also hitting the front, but it won't be quite as bright. That'll be more like right here on your cube, right? So I'm just going to drag a little material up into here and just push the light down. It's not a shadow side, but I'm just pushing the light down a bit, okay? So this is our shadow side, and these are two light sides, okay? Now let's throw a cast shadow in there. Kind of looks like a, as you scheme this out, you kind of go on a slant, come out from behind, kind of make what would be a typical house profile on the ground, kind of sideways. Okay, and there's ways to, figure out exactly what it would be, but we're really just scheming out a standard for the lights and darks. We're not too worried about the shape of that shadow. Okay, that's pretty rough. Let's tidy that up just a little bit. Okay, so there's my cast shadow for my cube. Okay, it's a little bit skewed because of my drawing. I'll try to fix that, or because of my camera. Okay, pull this back a little bit. Now, what's nice about, if you haven't found out yet, about using the charcoal, if you erase it and it's too light, just drag a little material in between there, and it'll usually fade away pretty easily. Okay, so just remember that. Also, let's go ahead and clean this up just a little bit. I'm not too worried about it. I just don't want it to be confusing. I just want to get things schemed out nicely for you. Okay, we'll have some background later. Okay, now down here, I want it to be more like that. Okay, so there it is. We're done. No, we're not quite done. Okay, so we have our shadow body right there. We have our cast shadow, the two elements, right? Shadow body and cast shadow. Now, what do we need? We still need core shadow and reflected light. So again, if your eyes are going along and you're in the light, you're looking at the light, and then you come in to look inside the house, right, where it's darker, where's that transition? You're moving along, you've hit the difference, and you're about to come in. Right as you come in is where it seems darker. It's both, this can be both an optical effect I might get my terms wrong here, but in other words, it could be something physical, optical. And I guess what I'm trying to say, it could be a literal physical thing that you can, walk up to and touch and see the difference. And sometimes it could just be inside your brain. It could just be optical. Your brain, your eyes, optically just adjusting for it, okay? But either way, start looking for that. Now what I did was I put a core shadow there. I kind of jumped through this. I put a core shadow here too because it's still light to dark. And then what I like to do is just average out that corner just a little bit. What I have to be careful with is not losing my shadow body, right? Don't lose my shadow body, but now I have my core shadow against the edges of the light. Now, we could have the slightest little core shadow from the light edge to the lesser light edge, but just be really careful. You can overstate that really quickly, okay? So as you look at these things, look at your actual objects, see what's going on. There could be a slight one right there. Okay, now we have one more thing left, don't we? We have the reflected light. Now, in theory, you're going to have a little splash of reflected light right here because the table's closest to right there. In scheme here, what I like you to do is just think in terms of having a reflected light opposite of your core shadows. You're not going to find that anywhere else. This is actually not like in any way a correct thing in reality. I just want you to be aware of it and think of it that way. Okay, then you'll always know it's there and you'll be looking for it. Does that make sense? So again, reflected light can actually depend on your whole environment, what's around it, stuff like that. But generally at the bottom, I like to kind of make it feel like it's opposite of that core shadow. Okay, now, just to finish this up, you guys, is let's throw a background back there, right? Because right now we're depending on these lines and marks to tell us where the background is. We don't want lines and marks. They are not there in reality. You don't have a line out there around somebody's head or somebody's whatever, or some, I don't know, a chair that you're drawing out there. There's no line around it. It's the lights and darks that are behind it and the light and dark that it has itself. Okay, so I'm just going to come in. And what I'm doing around the ball, the sphere, I'm trying to create, this is a pretty committed edge now. Okay. Trying to be a little careful. I'm not too concerned about a perfect horizon line meetup. In other words, the line being straight across through here. I do want it to be, you know, as good as it can be. But I'm not going to beat myself up over it. Okay. Come over here. Now, what I'll do at first is overshoot the sphere, so I'm not chunking into it. And then, and you can see I'm using the whole side of my charcoal because I don't want to create a line, right? I don't want to create a big chunky line around there. Trying to get my charcoal where I can see it. Okay, that's not too bad. So I'm just going to take my finger now. If you use your finger on the paper, it'll really blacken that drawn on charcoal, right? I don't know if you've discovered that yet or if I've mentioned it, but you can see, you know, it's not all that dark, but watch what happens when I take my finger and push in. If I did it with my towel would drag a lot of that material off. So your finger is the best thing to push material into the paper and soil it dark, right? Okay, creates that nice and quickly. Now I'm gonna get my edge for my box up top there. Again, if you're afraid you're gonna overdo or cut in too close, just undershoot it. But at some point, you want to get close enough to make it count. And what's nice here too is, okay, so say I go like that, and I grab my charcoal and push it in, make it nice and dark. Okay, let me just average this out really quick. All you do is gotta go back and forth, kind of losing our little light source reference, but that's okay. Anyway, just making a good background there. Now, good time to correct things if they don't look right. Blah blah blah. Okay, I'm actually gonna shave this little guy back. Okay, and then I can fix this down here too, right? This is erasable. So anyway, there's a lot of things I can do to fix this up. It's a little ski-wompy. I don't like exactly what's going on. But I'm not going to mess with it too much. Okay. Well, I just want to push this back. What I was going to say though is if you drag some of that material down with your finger into the light, it's going to erase back pretty good. If it's right where you put chalk on, it might be a little bit hard to do. Okay, over here, what do? I just want to first clean up to the round of the ball and then see if I need to add or take away anything. And what's funny is my drawing is one shape, but my camera angle creates just a slightly different skew on the sphere, so I'm going to go with that. And pull that back a little bit. Okay. Now over here, if you can't see it, don't draw it, right? If you can't see it, don't draw it. And there may be a spot where there is no line, there's no differentiation between the light and dark. Okay, my dirty eraser is dragging stuff around. Okay, that's okay. Have a nice little lost edge moment there. Okay, totally good. So anyway, there you go. Now down here on the bottom of a cube, I've got that little bit of darker there. That's great. Okay, you're gonna have a little something to tell us where the difference is there, but I don't mean for it to be a line. Could be a teeny little shadow, teeny little that seems like a line. It's small like a line, but think of it as a little teeny tone, that might be in there, telling us that the box isn't cemented to the table, but that it has a little bit of trap shadow under there, telling us where that edge is. Okay. Anyway, guys, this is basically it. I want you to work on these 4 pieces, the shadow body. Make sure you don't lose that shadow body color. Add the core shadow, reflected light, and again, I stick the cast shadow in second, so I've got something to work against. Then come up and put an environment behind it. And right now, this is on a half sheet of paper. That's totally great. That's a nice size to work with. You don't have to burn up a ton of chalk, but it's not so small that you can't push things around pretty good. All right, you guys, so hopefully you got that and enjoy working on that. And anyway, good luck with it. And go ahead and turn that into me, and that'll be the homework for this week. So thanks a lot, you guys. We'll see ya. And I'll go ahead and put this back on the other view so you can see it better, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.